Hey everybody, I hope that you are doing well today. This is Stephen with Junior Achievement here with another Career Speaker Series interview. Today we have James from Jacksonville, Florida. James, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Awesome, man. So the very first step in the interview is just introducing yourself, any personal information, even kind of a brief synopsis of your job, whatever you want to share.
Awesome. Well, I'm James, and I grew up in Georgia. You can see my little T-shirt right there behind me. I went to the University of Georgia and graduated from there in 2006. I stayed in Athens for a year, interning after college, and then moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in 2007, which is where I got connected to Boosterthon, which is who I've been with for the last 12 plus years.
Wow.
And I was in Charlotte for 4 years and then took an opportunity to move down to South Florida for a year and a half, and then got a promotion opportunity, which brought me up to Jacksonville a little over 7 years ago. And my role is I'm the area director for our teams across 6 different cities in our region, ranging from Orlando through Jacksonville up to Savannah, Georgia, and then across the Panhandle to Tallahassee, Pensacola, and into Mobile, Alabama. So it's been a fun journey. I've gone through almost every step in the org chart in our field, which has been fun and a great learning experience. And
Yeah,
glad to be where I'm at today.
that's awesome. Can you explain a little bit about what Boosterthon does?
Sure. So we primarily serve elementary schools with a fitness and character-based fundraising program.
Cool.
Essentially, a school PTA, or sometimes the school themselves, will hire our team to come on campus and help with their fundraising efforts. And then we have different levels of service. If a school wants to take on more through their volunteers and do more of a DIY, basically providing them a easy, hassle-free way to raise money for their school and have fun doing it too.
Wow, that's awesome. And especially if you've been there for 12 years, it sounds like a pretty good organization to be part of.
Yeah, I tell people part of my job is to interview new applicants. And one of the most common questions I get is, why have you been with Booster for so long?
Yeah.
It's pretty rare, I think, in this day and age to be in a job for more than 10 years. And so I'd say without a doubt, the thing that I always come back to is we just hire really good people, and I really like the team members that we work with. Of course, there's always going to be difficult days in anything that you do, but if you're surrounded by people who care and who are trying their best, it just makes things a lot better.
So next question is kind of in the frame and perspective of being a high school student. What was your thought process? Did you want to enter into college immediately? Did you want to enter into the workforce? I know you said you went to the University of Georgia. So what was your major, kind of that whole process?
Yeah, I actually, so I was a nerd coming out of high school. I was school was always just easy for me. And both my parents were teachers. I think the whole education system kind of fit naturally into my skill set. But in high school, I also played in a band, a hardcore metal band.
Wow, that's amazing.
And didn't want to leave that phase of life. I knew that, I didn't take for granted that high school was a lot of fun for me. And I knew that might not carry on into, professional adult life. And so I considered staying in my hometown, which was Augusta, just to be able to hang around my friends and keep the band going.
Yeah.
But got an offer to be in the honors program at University of Georgia.
Okay.
And so I took that. My one regret, honestly, coming out of high school was not transitioning straight into college. It's that I didn't actually pursue applying to a lot of colleges. I limited my options. And not that I necessarily would have gone out of state to a more expensive school, but looking back, I kind of have this lingering question of like, could I have gotten into, a bigger, more prestigious university? So although Georgia is great, and I had a great time there and I learned a lot, I kind of have that lingering question of like, could I have made it into Harvard, or could
Yeah.
I have made it into Duke, or, you know, something that has like big name recognition.
Yeah.
Um, I couldn't really decide on my major. I changed my major 4 times throughout college,
Okay.
which I think happens to a lot of people. And I actually took a semester off during the middle of college because I just didn't really have much clarity on the direction I wanted to go. And so, you know, if I were advising a high school student now, I would say there's definitely merit to taking time off to separate yourself out of the grind of the education system that kind of just keeps you chugging along. I don't know that that's the right answer for everybody,
Yeah.
but what my parents advised me at the time was like, sure, take a semester off. You know, I was able to do some adventurous stuff and join an organization that took me overseas for about 6 months.
Wow.
And that was really good just for me to clear my head and get to know myself a little bit better, and, you know, set myself in a direction of, okay, this is what I'm actually passionate about and where I could see myself going. So my parents just said, hey, if you're going to do this, just promise us that you'll come back and finish your degree. It almost doesn't matter what your degree is, but just finish what you start, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that lesson has stuck with me. So I changed my major from a pre-journalism major. I thought I wanted to be a sportscaster, to a rec and leisure studies major, which is, it sounds like a joke degree, but it's basically if you want to do, if you want to work with maybe Fish and Wildlife Service or run camps or things like that. And then I changed to an interdisciplinary honors degree. I was trying to mold basically where you can create your own degree. And I finished as a religion major.
There we go. So, wow, so a wide gamut.
What's ironic is that of all the things I did not in the business world, and lo and behold, that's what I've been doing for the last 13 years. So you just never really know.
That's what life does to you. So you ended off with a religion major, but I mean, you said it yourself that you're more in the kind of the business world right now. So it's not per se it wasn't in line with what you're doing right now. But I mean, could you just briefly describe how your preparation in college, even just kind of what you learned in those years, kind of helped you form who you are today and the job that you have?
Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the number one thing is just the social atmosphere of college. I personally was not, you know, I think in college, sometimes people can go one of two paths. They can, you know, kind of go that party route where they feel freedom for the first time, you know, outside of the home. And I just didn't really go down that route. That's not my personality. So I just surrounded myself with really good people who, you know, now 14, 15 years later are still some of my best friends that I stay in touch with. Cool. So I think the social growth and being able to get out of my hometown for me was really beneficial. Yeah. I think it's fine for some people, but for my personality, I think if I hadn't moved out of the house and moved to a new city and just needed to be able to take on my own responsibilities and cooking and cleaning and all the like simple stuff, I think that's probably what set me on the path the most. And as I look back to college, the place that I wish that I had challenged myself more is that I signed up intentionally for classes that you can, a lot of schools have these systems where you can track what teachers give kind of the best grades or might be the easiest. And looking back, I wish that I hadn't been as concerned about my GPA. Right. I wish that I had just chosen classes that were going to challenge the way I thought about the world. Right. Because ironically, the classes that did that for me were really varied. Like I had a film class that really challenged the way I looked at stereotypes in, you know, media. I had one of my rec and leisure studies classes was about inclusion, you know, keeping your eye out for things that make it easier for people with disabilities to to function, things that I had never noticed
Right.
in the world. And I had a Buddhism class, which I'm not a Buddhist, but it just gave me a new perspective on, oh, this is a different way to see the world. So
That's
I think
important.
college for me was that opportunity to be challenged in the way that I observe and see the world around me.
So now we're kind of focusing a little bit more on your current job as an area director for Boosterthon. So pre-COVID-19, pre-social distancing, what did your job look like?
Yeah. Well, I do want to make one side note. I know this
Yeah.
is through a junior achievement. And my first job transitioning from Athens to Charlotte, North Carolina, was with Junior Achievement. So
No way.
yeah, I'd worked in. They had this thing called JA BizTown, which was this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of this simulation city for elementary school kids to come and pretend to be working in the business world. So that was my job. I started part-time with that before I got connected with Booster.
So cool.
Yeah. But my area director job, how it's been changed, I was actually, because I work with people in 6 different cities, I was using virtual stuff pretty regularly. So I'm very familiar with Zoom, but I was not on it as frequently as we are now.
Right.
The biggest thing that's changed for us is that we work with schools, and schools have been closed. They've all turned virtual in the 4 states that we serve,
Right.
and they're not returning through the end of the spring. And so the biggest challenge has been trying to keep our team members engaged and focused on how to reframe your priorities when your normal pace is not there anymore. So we've, like, a big part of my job have been trying to keep my team motivated and keep things fun and big picture so that they stay engaged with,
Right.
all right, maybe we're not doing the normal work we would have done, but let's prepare ourselves for when schools return, that we can be as flexible as possible. We can be ready to navigate any changes that might happen in the future, because a lot of it is uncertain.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you've already even kind of hinted at how your job has changed. I mean, is there anything else? Like, you said that you are in Jacksonville. Do you guys have a team here in Jacksonville where you've had to use Zoom more just because of social distancing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm actually in my office right now, but I'm the only one that comes into our office.
Yeah.
Normally, in part of my job is visiting team members across our different cities. So I'm usually driving 1 or maybe 2 days a week to visit, maybe just a day trip up to Savannah or down to Orlando and back. That obviously is not happening at all. And our team, all of our team members have been staying at home. No one has been coming into offices. No one's been gathering together. So for me, it's just convenient. I have kids at home. And so because the office is so close to my house, I can easily drive the 5 minutes and know that I'm the only one going in there. There's not going to be, kind of cross interact.
So no, that makes sense. You said that you were really challenging your team to be flexible, which is something so important in this world, and being flexible, because I feel like we hear something really probably new every like 24 hours, maybe even less than that. What's another positive thing that you've even seen or that you hope to see in the coming months or however long this will last?
Yeah, so I relate some of it back to 2008, the financial, recession, whatever. I was with Booster at that time as well, and Boosterthon was a lot smaller company, and it was still very young and entrepreneurial. And so what I've been trying to relate to my team members is that what you framed as the guardrails on that's not my job. Well, in the new world, like, flexibility means, and ownership means, that you will very likely stretch outside the old boundaries of what you considered that's not my job.
Yes.
So in this kind of ironic way, job security is actually in doing things beyond your job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you can't just have these rigid lines of my role says I do this, so I only do this. Well, as we move forward, what ownership and flexibility requires is that, like, I'm going to prepare myself to flex down into positions and roles that maybe I haven't done over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm preparing myself to flex up to what my supervisors do to be able to help out and jump in. It's just you go from being, I think in times of, you could call this a crisis, in times of crisis, you really go from being a specialist to a generalist,
Wow.
And specialists are still needed, but the kind of like handyman, do everything type of jack of all trades personality really finds its strength, which for me is, I mean, you might have heard it through my college story. I couldn't decide on what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
I'm kind of a pretty good at everything, but not great at any one thing type of person. And times of uncertainty are really well designed, I think, for those people who normally might feel a little bit directionless. Having that wide range of capacity really comes in handy.
Yeah, absolutely. I find this season so interesting, like what you were saying about how I think everybody had this idea of like a virtual workplace, but it was never really probably going to happen. And now, since we are actually being forced to, it's saying like, oh, I didn't know this could actually be a possibility. And now we're like, oh, like this is the only possibility. And so, I mean, even within junior achievement, like our jobs have definitely shifted from what we were doing before COVID-19 into we're like, okay, like this is our new normal. And so I'm also even curious, like, will we stick with this new system, like moving forward? And so I'm curious how business will change.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a question that a lot of people would have, and it's unpredictable. And, another thing, we have a lot of young team members who join our organization. Either they might work part-time for us while they're college students, and then they often transition into some of our full-time roles, early out of college. And one of the biggest transitions from being in kind of that education mindset of, kindergarten all the way through college is that you get accustomed to people telling you, here's what's going to happen next. Here's the class you have to take next, or here's the next topic we're studying in our class for the next quiz. There's a lot of, it's not being spoon-fed, but you're being directed in your expectations of what's going to happen. And, that's a normal adjustment, I think, even without COVID-19 to the working world, is that people aren't going to tell you what's going to happen next.
No.
You kind of have to choose your path and go after it and course correct constantly. You take one step this way, you realize that's not exactly maybe the right way to get towards my end goal, so I'm going to course correct back. And I think we're all feeling that a little bit more right now, where none of us can really tell you what's going to happen next. The government can't tell us, doctors can't tell us, business leaders can't tell us. So it takes that wayfinding navigation of, all right, let's take a step in this direction.
Right.
Let's observe, let's analyze it, and then let's course correct as we learn more and more, and you kind of take it step by step.
Absolutely. I think that's a lifelong journey. I mean, I think that's often related to college, because in your experience, you did several different majors, like you tried different things out, but like we're experiencing like, no, this is actually happening now, like in the midst of everything, like pretty deep in your career. That's just really interesting to hear. And so leading to the last question, obviously, we're in volatile times. Job security is not at an all-time high. So why is it so important, you can tell these high school students, to focus on finances during, but also before seasons like this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we all know the background message that you've been hearing, save for a rainy day and all that. Well, the rainy day is here, So I think if nothing else, it puts the writing on the wall for just personal financial responsibility. And And I would say even for myself, there are seasons where you can't anticipate your car breaking down or all these things happening. And so having at least an emergency fund in the background to get you through seasons like this is, I think that's hitting home probably better than ever. I do think though that there's hope coming out of it too, which is to say, if you can establish habits now that you realize, hey, I don't need all the extravagances that I've, thought that I needed. And you kind of are able to press the reset button, even if you're forced to, on what's needed versus what's wanted. Then if you can carry that mindset, because we will come out of this. It's not going to be, 50 years of COVID-19. You know what I mean? We don't know the timeline, but there will be a ramp up where we start to return to life as normal, or the new normal, or whatever that is. And I think if you can establish the habits that you formed and the mindset that you formed during this time frame, it could really benefit a lot of people going forward. So my one example would be my grandfather, who he's passed away, but he was a young, I believe, maybe late high school, early college age during the Great Depression in whenever that was, the 1920s, I think 1929.
Yep.
And I remember, I didn't really understand it, but I remember him telling me about what that time frame was like, where he only had an apple to eat for the entire day. It didn't really make sense to me, as he was telling me while he was still alive and I was younger. But what was encouraging is that he told me, coming out of that Great Depression era, it established some habits for him that enabled him to slowly build wealth and security over time. Whether that was some investments he made in like some very simple things like Coca-Cola and Heinz ketchup and Ford, like very simple, basic things that like have carried on. And then just the general mindset of making sure that you take care of your needs first and your savings first, and then enjoy what you want to enjoy.
With comes afterwards.
So there's always going to be a potential for positive out of anything that comes across first as a negative, like we're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some wise words in the sense of creating habits now to when we do go back to the normal, whatever that may be, and to where you can still focus on what's the priority. That's always so important, even outside of finances as well. But James, thank you so much for sharing the context of who you are, obviously within your job as an area director for Boosterthon, and how you got there, just kind of your journey through life. So I really appreciate you sharing with all these students your story.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity. I think one kind of final thought is just, I do think that this is a good time where it's probably healthy in life to have these moments of reset, where you have to do some self-examining and you get forced into a situation that you might not normally be in. I don't know if anybody would actively invite those types of seasons, but I think they can be really healthy and beneficial, because it gives us a chance to get out of the rat race for a minute, and step back and realize what's really important. So
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it, James. So wonderful talking to you, and stay safe out there.
All right. Thanks, Stephen.